Howdy y'all, it's Jordan Smith. So we are air sealing today. We have AeroBarrier out here and I wanted to take you through the setup and the application of AeroBarrier. So here is the rig. So right now we are calibrating every single zone. This is where the liquid gets pumped out. This is a roller pump here that pumps the fluid AeroBarrier through. Comes out this backside here. We've got 8 zones, and then we also have air outputs, 2 air outputs for 1 fluid output. And then this goes into the house, excuse me here, goes into the house here, over to these different zones which atomize it. So this sprays out basically a airborne liquid caulk. The product goes through here, the air comes up through here, and it's atomized through this orifice. And we're going to show you in a time-lapse video this screen here getting filled with AeroBarrier. So it's going to completely seal that void there. It can seal up to a 1/2 inch hole. That means that everywhere that we have, like here, that's the vent hood. That's where the vent's going to be coming through. So that goes straight outside, and we have got to seal that off. All of our windows and doors here are going to be sealed off as well, right here. So that gets sealed off. Here's the window here where it gets sealed off. So let's talk a little bit about why we're doing this. There's a lot of confusion out there on what houses need and what people need. So houses need to breathe is one of the biggest misconceptions that there is out there. Houses do not need to breathe. There's nothing living about the house. You could put it in space where there is no air and it's going to be fine, right? It's going to be preserved actually, because there's not all of the microbials and all the moisture and everything that would tear it up. People need to breathe. I need to breathe. I want fresh air. In fact, indoor air quality is the worst air quality of any air that you'll experience. It's way worse than outside. So the fresh air outside is what we need to be breathing. But we don't want to be living outside and having all the elements on us, so we build buildings and we live in them. Well, back before we air conditioned them, we would have drafty homes, and the indoor air quality and the outdoor air quality would be about the same. But nowadays, we like to have air conditioned homes. We want to have our temperature inside the home be more comfortable than outside the home. So we put AC in them and we put heaters in them. So in order to make those more efficient, we put insulation in the walls. And now we've got all these condensating surfaces inside a wall that if you do things wrong, you can get mold growth and a lot of bad stuff in the wall, especially if you're bringing in hot, humid air from the outside and you're cooling the air on the inside. You can get mold growth on the inside of that, on the inside of your drywall. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to seal out all of my air leaks. I want this thing as tight as possible. Let's say 0.6 ACH. I don't know whether I'll hit that in this house. We'll see here in a second once we start going. But I want my house as tight as possible, and then I want to bring in outside air into my house, fresh air for the people inside to breathe, because people are also pretty nasty and stinky. We create a bunch of stuff. We're humid, we're sweaty. I'm sweating right now. We're sort of gross creatures living in this box. So we want to exhaust the stale air and we want to bring in fresh air. So there's 2 different strategies to do that. One is you have a drafty home and just the natural leaks in the house let in enough fresh air and exhaust enough out bad stale air. The problem with that is you're filtering it through who knows what as it comes in from who knows where. The second way, and the way that I prefer to do it, and the way we're doing it here in this house, is we have a ERV. We have a Panasonic ERV, and an ERV is a energy recovery ventilator. So it's bringing in this environment here, it's bringing in hot air from the outside, and it's exhausting cool air from the inside. It's an ERV, which is better for humid environments. It's not too humid here, so an HRV would have worked just nearly as well, but we had an ERV and I know how to use it, so that's what we're using. But it has a core on the inside, and as I'm bringing in that hot air from the outside, it filters it through this core, and as I'm bringing the cold air from the inside, it comes through that same core, that same heat exchanger, and some of the heat, I should say, from the outside gets absorbed in the cold airstream, and it cools down the hot air coming in, so we temper that air coming in. So now we have fresh air, but we're not just exhausting out all the energy that we put in to take the heat out of this air. We're recovering some of that heat or energy. The second thing that it does is that actually will exchange humidity too, so it helps with if you have a drying unit on the inside, a dehumidifier on the inside of your home, it will help dry the incoming air. In this environment here, we actually have a humidifier, and so we're wanting to keep some of that humidity inside our house. So we're bringing in fresh air, we're tempering it, we're saving some of our energy that we've put into making this air so good, but we're bringing in fresh air and you're exhausting the stale air, and we get to do it on our terms. I'm going to be bringing in a very precise amount of air, and I'm going to be exhausting a very precise amount, and I'm actually going to unbalance my ERV. I'm going to have more air being brought in than I'm exhausting, so I pressurize this house, so if there are any leaks, it's pushing air out and I don't have dust. In this environment here, one of the big drawbacks to a leaky house is you have so much dust. I don't know whether you saw my Instagram, I posted a video of a big storm front coming in, and it's just a big dust cloud. I think they call it a haboob. Yeah, haboob. It's this big dust cloud coming in, and it will just fill up the homes with this super fine powdery dust. It will find every crack that there is. So with this system here, we make sure that we keep the dust out, we keep all the unwanted air out, we bring in the fresh air that we do want, and we exhaust the stale air that we don't want. It's not as complicated as it sounds. I'll be walking you through step by step as we get through the process, but today we're air sealing. So we'll see first what this thing blows before we air seal it, and then what it blows after we air seal it. It'll be interesting because this is a Zip-R house. We put zip fluid applied around the bottom of the Zip-R to the slab, so we're sealed to the slab. It's all tape jointed. My framer, I feel you guys, I get comments all the time that says, hey, how do you find people who do good work in your area? It's hard because, you know, up here we're in a pretty rural part of the world. We have some really good craftsmen. We really do have some really good, like carpenters especially. Some of these technologies that have stayed stagnant over, you know, years and years, and what it was 150 years ago is probably better than what most people can do today. So there's some really good craftsmen, carpenters in this area. But when it comes to building science, man, people are lagging behind the times. I was talking in a hardwood store that I was in yesterday in Lubbock, talking to the guys about what we were doing today and sealing up the house, and I mean, their eyes just glazed over with like, man, that sounds so much more complicated than just throwing up some sticks and throwing on some tar paper on the outside and calling it good. And honestly, in this environment, we're in the high desert, it's not that hard to build here. It's dry, it's not humid. The biggest thing that you have to worry about is windstorms, right? It's a pretty temperate climate otherwise, so you can get by with a lot of stuff. So we're raising it to a higher level, and I think that everybody will start raising it to a higher level, not because we have problems with the structure, but because of the health of the occupants. So back to what I was saying about the zip. We have a Zip-R sheathing, so we have an R6, and then we've blown in Owens Corning fiberglass. This is a blown-in product. Now, there was a lot of questions on Instagram when I put it on there of, hey, that blown-in product, does it settle? I don't know. I'm not the expert on this. I haven't been doing this for 50 years with blown in and then have deconstructed what I built 50 years ago to say, see, it doesn't. But there's a lot of smart people out there who have and have shown them taking it apart. I'm going to try to find some links. I don't have any off the top of my head right now. I've had a lot of people say it doesn't settle, but I want to get some links that prove that and show that. So hopefully below I've got some links that show that this doesn't settle, but it is very applicator dependent. The good thing about a a craft paper backed bat is that it's pretty easy to see if it's installed correctly. It's either there or it isn't. The bad thing about it is a lot of times it isn't there. There's big gaps where the installers just didn't put it, but it's a pretty easy visual to see if they did it right. With spray foam and this blown-in system, both, you really are depending on your applicator to do a good job and make sure that it's filled right. I walked this whole thing after we blew in the insulation, and I made sure that we were pillowing out evenly from top to bottom the exact same. And that's a tricky thing too, because you want it full enough where it's pillowed out and the sheetrock pushes it back, and you know that you're not going to have any settling because there's nowhere to go. But you don't want to get too full, because if you get too full, when you put your sheetrock in, you may have pillowing that telegraphs through from the cavities out through the sheetrock, meaning it pushes that sheetrock out and you get these pillows down there. So that is where we are at today. We did zip-R, we have a 2x6 wall cavity with fiberglass insulation, giving my walls somewhere around an R30, not quite R29, R30. But then we have an air gap and the siding, so in reality will be a little bit higher than that, but let's just say an R30 wall. And then we're going to air seal the whole thing with AeroBarrier. So I'll be able to tell you where we're at before we started and where we got to after we finished. So let's see what we get. So step one is sealing everything off. Step two is purging the line. So that's what we're doing now, and that's why
I've got the mask.
There's nothing on blue or pink.
Okay.
Alright, so here we're good. Here we're good. Here we're good. We're good upstairs. Good.
All right, so now we're purged, and the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting a blower door on it. So here's
I'll push something through.
Set up, and I'll show you how they put that up, and then we're going to pressurize the whole thing, and all that atomized caulk that you see, we'll find all the holes and seal it up. It's exciting stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Now the blower door.
There you go.
All right, so now we have purged the lines. We have made sure that we've got the product going to all of the atomizing nozzles in all of the rest of the house. We have put in our blower door test here, or the blower door unit, I should say, and we're about to do a test here, pressurize the house. All right, well, good news. We are already down. We got to put this restrictor plate B on here that lowers the amount of volume on the blower door. We're at 1.39 without air sealing. That's just building it right with zip and taking care of the details. 1.39, that's pretty cool. That's no spray foam or anything. That's just sealing it up with zip. So I'm impressed with that. 1.39, let's see how far down we get. That's pretty cool. All right, so we have started the test here, and we started at a 1.39 ACH 50. We've been running for about a half an hour now, and we're down to 0.9. Oh yeah, underneath the doors. Yeah. So it's coming from underneath the doors as well. So it'll seal it. We'll let it keep running. We'll see how low we can get it to go. Okay, so we have finished up AeroBarriering this place. We're cleaning up now, so let's talk results. We started out at 1.39 ACH 50, which is pretty tight. You know, code is down at 3 now, but in this part of the world, nobody even does blower doors. So this is, you know, nobody knows how good or bad that is, but that is a very tight house for having no air sealing done at all. That was just that exterior zip system brought all the way around the house, which is an easy way of building. I really like that detail because I don't have all of the penetrations for my porches, for my rafters, and everywhere else that I have to seal up. So 1.39, really good there. We brought it down to 0.68, which is really, really tight. Passive is 0.6, so we're not quite there yet. The only reason that we quit is, one, we had been here an hour and we were doing a demo, so people were, you know, they were milling around ready to go. 0.68 is really, really, really tight. And we blew open a door that is an exterior door over here that opens to the outside. It blew open because the house got so pressurized that it finally gave away. We didn't have all the hardware in and the door closed correctly, so it opened up. We lost pressure and we were already so low, we decided just to call it there at 0.68. We could have gone lower, but once you start getting to these levels of low air exchange, it really doesn't make as big of a difference as it does when you're going from like 5 to 3 or 7 to 5. So 1.39 down to 0.68 is a huge improvement. We've reduced the equivalent hole in our house by over half. So we went from like a 97 square inch hole equivalent for this house down to a 47 square inch hole. So huge reduction. And if you think about it, on a 3,122 square foot house, for all of the holes in this whole house to be the same size as basically a 4.5 inch by 10 inch slot, and that's all the air that we're pushing out of this entire house, that's pretty impressive. And it didn't take long. It took us about an hour to set up. It took us about an hour to run, and then they're going to be doing tear down, which will take them a little bit of time too. So it's a fast process. It's a very easy to schedule process. We do our insulation, we do our sheetrock and level 1 air sealing, and then we do AeroBarrier, and our air sealing is done. And it's also not that expensive of a process. So this is costing about 75 to 80 cents per square foot. So between the fiberglass insulation being cheaper and AeroBarrier, I'm still coming out ahead of if I would have spray foamed, and I have a way tighter house than if I would have done spray foam. I've done several spray foam houses, and getting under 3 with just a straight spray foam job can be done, but you have to do it right, and it's a little bit tricky. Doing fiberglass and then AeroBarrier, if you're starting somewhere like at 5 or 7, you can get this thing down under 3 or under 1 much quicker and at a much more economical rate. We used about 3.5 gallons of caulk. That's sort of amazing, isn't it? That we pumped 3.5 gallons of caulk into this space, or AeroBarrier. It's not caulk, but we pumped about 3.5 gallons into here, and it found all of those little cracks and sealed it up. Really, really cool technology. I'm a fan. I'm going to start using it on all of my builds. I especially like that we're going to be able to move away from some of the chemicals that are involved in spray foam, and we're going to be able to use fiberglass, and then eventually I'd like to start using even lower VOC, even more green products like cellulose or denim. You have some trade-offs with R value there that I really like fiberglass for, so I'm still trying to figure it out. Comment below with your favorite air sealing and insulation combo. Do you like spray foam? Do you like this AeroBarrier and fiberglass stuff? Would you rather use something else? They're doing sheep's wool in some parts of the country to really go green. So comment below with your favorite combos. Subscribe if we've earned it. Go follow us over on our social media channels, and we'll see you next time on Smith House. So a little bit of post-mortem. If you're having a hard time visualizing what this stuff looks like, we didn't seal a door well enough here. and we should have sealed it better on this side to keep this stuff from coming through. But you see that right there, it's just like a little rubbery caulk that adheres, and it really sticks well to that door. I'm gonna have to spend the next little bit cleaning this up, because we didn't seal it great here. It came through and it started doing what it's supposed to do, and it started trying to seal that gap up itself. So it's sort of like maybe like rubber cement filling. You see how stretchy it is there. I mean, it grabs and it fills up a pretty big gap. You see here on the other side of this door where it was adhering to it, and given enough time, it would have filled that completely up. So that's the dirty little secret of air sealing. We've done all this with the doors taped off. We sort of cheaped out on these doors. We didn't cheap out, but budget was a concern. We went with the cheaper door. We went with the double door. That's not great for air sealing either. But we're so low for the rest of the house, we can get by with some less than ideal performing doors because our windows are great. Our air sealing throughout the rest of the house